Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If everyone could please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. Chris, can you hear us out there? Or
Yes, I can hear you.
okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. All right. So I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
No motion. Go ahead.
All right, Colin. All in favor?
Hey.
Anyone against? Motion passes unanimously. All right, teacher, staff, and community comments. Does anyone online like to say anything? We have no public in the room. Okay, moving on. We'll go to our PCB update, and we have some guests in the room, I believe, that would like to present.
Yeah, where would you like me to stand?
So that camera I can move over here.
I mean, if I stand here, can everyone see
I
me?
think so,
Okay.
and the camera will go right to you too.
Sit too. if you want.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm happy to stand. My name is Craig Sterrett. I'm with Harper Environmental. We're the environmental consultant for the school district and for Rutland Town School with respect to identification and remediation of PCBs. And I have a few slides. You're not going to really be able to make them out up there. But the first slide, so have you received, do you know how this all has taken shape? You want me to kind of go back and just give a...
I received a parent letter, which
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents did, but I don't think the broader public got a lot of information, so.
Okay. So the way these projects begin is we come into the school and we do what's called an inventory, and we identify every building material that could possibly contain these chemicals, PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. We then take that information, construction dates, other information, and we group rooms together into what we call groups of rooms or room groupings. And then we pick at least a minimum of 33% of rooms in each one of those groups. Again, these contain similar building materials and potential PCB sources. And then we go in there and we sample the indoor air. And that's the way that tells us, it's just without having to look at every material, we just check the air. And if the levels are above a certain threshold, that indicates, well, two things. One, that there are PCBs in building materials at the school, and the other, that there are, just health, risks associated with it. And that parent letter would have explained the school action levels. So the threshold, the minimum threshold for all of this is 30 nanograms per cubic meter of air. That's how it's reported. And that's what we call the pre-K school action level. And because there is pre-K in the school, that is the school-wide school action level for this school. We then have the K through 6 school action level, which is 30 to 60 nanograms per cubic meter of air. I'm sorry, it's 60. Sorry, it's 60. And then grade 7 through adult is 100 nanograms per cubic meter of air. And each room has its own, the school has the minimum SAL, so if there's pre-K in a school, that 30, the pre-K SAL applies just generally to the school. But then each space within the school has its own depending on how the room is used. So my understanding is right now, pre-K activities are taking place in a part of the school where no PCBs are likely to be present or they've been detected. Except for the space that we're in now, the library, the nurse's room, the main office where, pre-K children do come occasionally for some amount of time. Yes.
Spanish classroom.
The Spanish classroom. Can you remind, Spanish classroom is that one?
Spanish classroom is when you first walk into the entryway, the first room on your right.
First room on the right. Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Spanish.
That's
And also the Planning for Success room,
planning for success.
which is, that's right when you walk into the main office. It's right there behind the nurse's office.
behind the nurse's office. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so there's a few other, I don't know, places that preschool won't go.
Okay. Anyway, so that's sort of the background. You can't see it on this slide, but we did our initial air sampling. I believe it was in October of 2023, and we sampled all of those sort of colorful areas. Those are the different room groups. Those little boxes that you can't make out from here include the sampling result we got, and then just any potential PCB containing materials that are in that room. We were originally told our best information was that this area and this area had been added to the school after 1980. And I believe it was at a school board meeting that somebody put up their hand and said, no, those were there when I went here. And somebody pointed it out. So we came back, if you can go to the next slide.
Cool, they can open their mouth.
So we came back and did another inventory followed by an air sampling event in this area, and this area. And as it turns out, this area, and a number of spaces here all do contain, confirmed PCB materials. So if you go to the next slide, but everything was fine because we were on this pathway. We were going from the original inventory through the air sampling up to what we call the source identification investigation. And that's where we go and take samples of suspect materials in each room where there were exceedances of the air threshold, the school action level. And we determined that there were 4 materials that are sort of present everywhere, here, and a few areas here.
Trying to move my mouse too,
Okay.
so people can see online. Sorry, it's being recorded.
If you go to, we'll come back to this slide. If you go to the next slide, these are all the confirmed materials we've identified in the school. The ones in red, if you want to look at the library, mouse, Sarah. The ones in red contain PCBs at a concentration greater than 50 parts per million, or milligrams per kilogram. And the ones in blue were above 1 part per million, but below 50. And they're essentially unregulated. They aren't a major concern. The ones in red are things that the federal regulations require be addressed with a cleanup plan, essentially. And the materials that we found that were sort of everywhere were window caulk. So the windows were installed, they were caulked in inside and out. The exterior caulk, which we did limited sampling of, didn't appear to have very high levels. The interior caulk does have very high levels of PCBs. The window glazing, the material that's between the metal frames and window pane, that came back also not quite as high as that window caulk, but also in the thousands range. I think one sample was as high as 2,800 parts per million. And just going back to the window caulk, we had some that were as high as 110,000 parts per million, which is quite high. We've had significantly higher at other schools, but it's a high concentration, meaning it's an obvious source of the indoor air impacts. The third high PCB material we identify, we call it expansion joint caulk. So these concrete block walls, when they're constructed, there are little gaps left just so if the walls shift, they don't crack. Sometimes they're called control joints, and they're usually caulked inside. And we found this material sort of everywhere. Again, in this higher range of approaching 100,000 parts per million. And then just in one place, we found some door frame caulk on a door to the outside that also had high levels, but that was just in a single area. Those other 3 materials are they're all around here, they're all around here, they're in this library, they're in this room, CO4. We've identified no PCBs containing materials in the main office. And if we go back to the previous slide, the reason I'm here now is as an interim mitigation measure, we moved carbon air filters. You've seen them around here into, I think, a total of 13 spaces. And they are normally do a great job of keeping the air levels down. We monitor them quarterly. We come every 3 months to make sure they're doing their job. And we came in February and everything looked fine. And then we came again in June. And what we found were, I don't know if you can see the red here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces where there were exceedances of the immediate action level, which is calculated as 3 times the school action level for that area. So with the highest concentration being 330, again, this is nanograms per cubic meter of air in the guidance room, which is right over there. We call it room CO4. Also, high levels here that exceeded the immediate action level for, again, 150 was the highest value we got in this room, and that's more than 3 times the pre-K SAL, because pre-K kids do use the space to some degree. That's the one we use, but it did not exceed the K through 6 SAL. The main office, we also found a SAL exceedance there. Again, this was for the, an immediate action level exceedance based on the pre-K school action level. And then in room D01, and Sarah, correct me, this is the room D01 is...
That's a,
PFS room.
That's the PFS room.
yes,
Yes, and
yes,
that's the
sorry.
nurse's office.
Right next to it.
Yeah, so we have immediate action level exceedances there too. Where's the Spanish room that you were mentioning?
Spanish room is
Right there.
Okay, so
right
we did
here,
not,
D11.
yeah, we did not record because we have that room that is for K through 6.
Pre-K.
This room is for pre-K.
Yeah,
11.
so Spanish goes to our specials. So they go to library, preschool, sorry. Preschool goes to specials. So library, PE, health, art, music.
Okay.
They go to all the specials classes.
Okay, so we have been including that with a K through 6 SAL. So not appreciating that pre-kindergarten children were in that room, and that's why this isn't red. It should be.
Right. We had let the Spanish teacher know.
Okay. So,
Kelly Treya did. He had called.
okay.
her.
So have you moved that? Have you changed the use of that room?
No, we would just have, like we did before, Spanish and library will have to go to the preschool classrooms
Okay.
to
Gotcha.
teach.
Yep, I get it now. Okay, so, but we should have, that probably should have been listed as a. as
Yeah, I
something
thought it
else.
was in the first
It
letter.
wasn't, so now health might have called it out. This would have been the most recent letter from the health department.
Right.
So they probably did, they might have caught something that we and DEC were
It
not,
said Spanish not used for preschool.
not used for preschool.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that was there.
Okay. We were asked by DEC to prepare an interim corrective action plan to do some remediation work in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 spaces where these red flags came up. Again, not being aware that this was also kind of in the same situation. And we've developed that plan, we've submitted it to DEC, it's been provisionally approved. We've met with Sarah and Chris. We've discussed it. There was a general agreement that they wanted, something to be done in these areas. And so we developed this work plan where we're going to come in and remove those materials that I mentioned, the caulks, the glazing, so the window caulk, the window glazing, and the expansion joint caulk in those areas. In the office, the main office, there are no PCB containing materials. There, it's just air from the larger environment is just kind of getting sequestered in there. And it probably has to do with the AC that they run there that probably recycles the air. So the school is having their HVAC person come and to measure the air exchange in that office, and then to boost up basically the return air to make sure that PCBs are not accumulating in the air there, but there's no actual abatement work that's going to take place in the main office. That's going to be restricted to the library, the guidance room, I can never remember the letters, the
Yeah.
PFS.
PFS room, and the nurses station. And the plan is to come and remove those materials, just literally scrape them out, and we're working with a subcontractor that specializes in this. You may have read about the North Country High School that has had this major project going on. It's this exact same type of project. It's an interim corrective action plan that was put into place in order to reduce air levels in specific areas so that the school could be, and fully occupied. This is a smaller version of that, but we're working with the same abatement contractor. Where these have been done so far, the results look good. Again, it's pulling out the materials, and then there are a couple of stages of visual and instrument-based clearance that we do, and then when everything's clear, then the surfaces that are left in place. So the caulk obviously is on the wall as well as the window. Everything is scraped as clean, to be visually clean, and then it will be encapsulated under 2 coats of an epoxy coating that will prevent any PCBs that have impregnated the concrete block wall from then off-gassing into the environment. So that's the plan. This is all scheduled to begin on Monday. And so far we've gotten, we've been encouraged to proceed with this by DEC, who originally asked us to do it. Chris and Sarah both thought that this was the right way to go. And we just wanted to make sure that the school board and the larger school community was aware of what was taking place. We expect to have the gross removal phase, so the actual abatement part, done before teachers come back on August 26th. That will take place the week of the 19th. And then in the second week, that will just be the sort of the encapsulation that I talked about, and then some secondary testing that we're going to do. Then right after Labor Day, we're going to come in, we're going to resample indoor air in those spaces, and we expect we're going to see much, much lower levels. Anybody have any questions or concerns?
Who pays for that?
So, Sarah can speak, Chris can speak to this, but the state is paying for it. There are funds that have been set aside specifically for this project, and we send our bill to the school. They get in touch with the business office of the state of Vermont, and
The taxpayers, yeah.
Those
The taxpayers. It was a
well, the
roundabout.
taxpayers, that's where the ultimate comes from, yeah.
There's a question online.
Do you want me to continue sharing this or before we answer questions?
Yeah.
Continue. Okay. She's
Yes, you're
muted. You're muted.
Hi there, sorry. Just a couple questions. The brown areas on the map, which I think is the pre-K wing, why is that brown? And also, I looked through the links online. I had trouble accessing the maps of the school. I was wondering if these graphics slides are available to the public and if we could maybe get access to them.
So to answer your first question, so this brown area, this whole project is only focused on buildings and parts of buildings that were constructed prior to 1980. So that part we are certain was constructed in 1984. So we've just never looked in there.
Okay, and so are we certain just that if there's areas that were constructed, there's no off-gassing or recycled air, or, based on other projects where this has happened, does that ever happen, or are we just so certain that there's no chance that it would be able to sort of like move into those spaces?
I don't think so. And based on the sampling that I've seen, some consultants have sampled in connected areas with more recent construction dates. We haven't done it simply because if we were seeing much higher indoor air levels in those areas, then yes, we might take a look at indoor air there. For the most part, we have not seen major migration from areas that are separate or just apart from those areas.
Okay, also wondering when the mitigation is happening, are areas like sealed off, or how does that work so that it's not just sort of like it's flowing around into other spaces,
Yeah.
I guess?
Very good question. So all this work will take place under containment. So this is basically, can you see the library here?
Yes.
So over there, starting about 4 feet back from the windows, all of that will be cordoned off with plastic barriers. Everything is sealed up with this special tape. Everything inside is covered in plastic. And it's all under negative pressure that's exhausted through HEPA filters to the outdoors. So there's no way for dust to migrate, like even from over there into here. And we have special instruments that will be recording full time that will basically they'll make an alarm if dust levels were to increase outside the containment area. That would signal that somehow the containment area has been compromised. And the abatement people work with these all the time. They know that means you stop working, you find out what the problem is. Not that they happen much, but and then you correct what you have to correct, and then you try again. You see if your dust levels go down. But
Okay, that's super reassuring to hear that part. And then I had mentioned about the graphics, if that's available to the public, because I kind of looked all over the letters that had gone home and on the links that were provided, and I couldn't actually get a map with the room numbers and things.
So unfortunately, I don't make these things available to the public. The DEC is supposed to, all this should be available on the DEC's website, but I know that many of these schools, the reports are not being uploaded. So they're not, you can't get them. So if that's something that you want to see, Chris and I'll bring that comment to the site manager for this school at the DPC and make sure that he gets those up so that you can access them. And
Yeah, or even if it doesn't have the results, but like just a map of the
Yep.
school to know like what rooms, which wing is which. I couldn't even figure it out, and I've been in the school many times. So
these are maps that we made, for this project. So they're not pre-existing maps. We include them in our
Okay.
reports as a way to, just visually display the results, and so we can just at a glance kind of take in what's going on where.
Okay, great. Okay, that's super informative. Thank you.
Question? And you may not be able to answer. Why would we not want to mitigate the entire building? I understand that certain sample levels, but presumably when the building was built, it was the same materials being built in each one of these classrooms at the same time, the same caulking.
Yes.
And I understand that different tests pop up here and there, but and the DEC's ultimate wisdom, why not strip down all the caulking?
Well,
Or are we just going to wait?
No, that will be the plan. Is these materials, we know that they're there. That is what's going to have to happen. This was undertaken as sort of an emergency, effort to deal with the acute situation of those immediate action level exceedances that we found. In addition to addressing those, this interim corrective action plan is also going to hopefully validate that the methods we're using are the right ones, and that then they will be applied in the other school areas where these materials are present. Hopefully, beginning at the start of the very end of the school year in 2025. That will be done under not an interim corrective action plan, but a full corrective action, or it could still be an interim one for complicated reasons that I won't go into, but a school-wide corrective action plan where the materials will be addressed everywhere they are. So one of the phases that we skipped because of the urgency or the perceived urgency of this situation was an evaluation of corrective action alternatives, which is something that we do when we're, approaching a project. It's part of the Department of Environmental Conservation's requirements for any, cleanup of a contaminated site. Is you have to basically look at the available or potential approaches to dealing with the situation and evaluate them relative to each other, relative to major factors, including cost, community acceptance, efficacy, obviously, compliance with regulations. There are 10 criteria. And then at the end of that, we end up with a numerical value and make a recommendation. Currently, I mean, the approach that we're using here would probably end up on the top of that pile when we develop that evaluation document for the school-wide project, to be scheduled, I'm hoping next summer.
How many schools you guys work with?
We've got, how many have we got? We've done about 30 schools to one, some we go in, we do the inventory, we do the air sampling, they're good. Approximately a little over a third of the schools that we've been in. So we have, I would say, and we've also taken over a couple of projects from other consultants. So I think right now we have about a dozen schools that are, have proceeded to the source identification phase, and now we're going to be doing some sort of corrective action. Some schools have small problems, some schools have big problems.
This is not pursuant to your work, but what percentage of the schools you seeing need remediation? Roughly, off the
Right, about of the schools that I've seen, I guess about a quarter of them.
a quarter.
Yeah,
And
just sometimes it's very small.
what's this? Our remediation cost? Rough ballpark.
So for this interim corrective action plan, the total cost is about $146,000. And just to give you just a little idea of context, what they're doing at this large high school up in Newport is costing $5 million. We're doing this urgent thing. We're doing it pretty inexpensively, and we have no reason not to think this will be successful. Then we're going to have a good idea of what it will cost to do the same thing school-wide when that time comes. I do want to mention, just because it has come up, that the way we're proceeding with this, PCBs have always been regulated only at the federal level by EPA, and Vermont is the first state in the nation to kind of get involved with this sort of project of regulating PCBs in any capacity. And so this plan and any corrective action plan that we have also has to be submitted to EPA for their approval. Because of the urgency of this plan, DEC wants to basically will be approved by DEC. I'm hoping final approval will come tomorrow. We'll submit it to EPA, but we're not going to hear back from EPA until after this work is completed. EPA will very likely say, well, there's additional work to be done, or we don't approve of this because it doesn't address these materials in other parts of the school. We already know that. We already know that this is just an urgent effort focused on 5 discrete spaces. There's more work to be done, so we don't think we're rolling the dice in any big way. DEC works closely with EPA. We have monthly meetings with DEC and EPA. They're plugged into this. They know how these things are going. But when we receive, some schools have attempted to do sort of interim measures and then heard back, and then done it, and then heard back from EPA that their solution was incomplete or it was unacceptable in one respect or another. We don't think that's going to be the case here. We think EPA is going to say additional work needs to be done because these materials are present throughout the school.
Last question. How long do you think we've been at these levels in your professional assessment?
With these indoor air levels, I think since the school's constructed.
Okay. So they don't elevate? It's just,
To my knowledge, they don't. There are a number of factors. I would think that age could contribute to it, just as these materials become less just less intact. They might off gas more. I don't know specifically. But to one degree or another, whether they've grown up gradually over time. I mean, these are old materials. They've been in place since 1967.
I might be wrong, but I thought on the parent letter, it looked like the testing levels were more in the recent test versus the original. So why is that if you think the levels have been pretty constant?
Oh, so there are other factors that affect the indoor air levels. If you look through the history, when we did our first sampling, the library levels we've seen, if you go back to the first slide, Sarah, thank you. So this was the initial indoor air sample that we collected in October in the library. And it was basically the same as it was in June. So there is seasonal variation, heat, solar radiation, these things, especially on window associated materials, do cause them to off-gas more. And we've seen that a lot in other schools. And here it's quite possible that that June sampling event we did, where we saw those immediate action level exceedances, had something to do with the heat at the time of sampling. So
Were the air filters being run through the summer too?
And I think too, everybody kind of took vacation when they came back here, just so that it could be empty and quiet for them to do the testing. So some teachers, we don't have screens. We don't leave windows open when the building's closed at night. We don't have screens on almost all of our windows. So that was I had the same thought, Tina, and I had asked, and they said, yeah, I mean, it was closed. It was hot, 100 degrees for a number of days, close to that. And
It just seems like maybe they're not doing anything.
So the filters, we know just from what we saw. I don't have a slide with the February testing that we did. The first round, once after the filters were put in, we did see reductions along the lines of the reductions we've seen in other schools. So what I think is that a combination of factors, but mostly the heat and the intense sunlight on the window materials just overwhelm the filters. They can only do so much. So when things are cooler and darker, the filters are going to do fine, but they're not a permanent solution. We think that this is a good way to get started. First of all, it's going to remove occupancy restrictions, hopefully, on these few spaces that we're beginning with. But it's also going to get us started on the larger work that needs to be done at the school.
Thank you very much for your.
My pleasure.
Not even not questioning your work. How much, if you had to ballpark this state, and I think it's an important issue to mitigate, obviously, how much money you think we're looking at? Not just us. In my professional assessment, and I don't know anything about anything, they've grotesquely underestimated how much money needs to go into this fund to do remediation. How do you have that same opinion? I guess what am I saying? Is we're not prepared for what needs to happen. I know you don't work for them, and I'm not asking you to badmouth it.
Can't really speak to it. Did they underestimate? I don't think they underestimated how much. I think they thought that there would be more money forthcoming from the legislature, and that didn't happen during the last round. Everyone's hoping that that's going to change, in the next session. I don't know what to say. I know there's a lot of
buildings and a lot of materials we need.
And the good news is that there's money to do this project.
That's kind of my thing. Is like, can we push them to do more?
And it's beginning. Well, that's the thing. If these levels, continue to be high periodically in other parts of the school, it's going to make the urgency to do this. The school is a priority now. Any school where the filters are in place to, mitigate levels, are a priority. If there are cell exceedances, then it's more of a priority. If there are IAL exceedances, then it's sort of a top priority. Okay. So we're not just kind of doing this and then we're going to go, work somewhere else. Mm-hmm. We're going to go right into the development of that evaluation document I mentioned and determine the best way to move forward with the complete abatement. And then it's up to, the powers that be to find out if there's funding for it. Yeah, thank you. Very helpful. My pleasure. Anybody else? Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
30 years.
Check his pulse. You're right. Been in this building more than anybody. In trouble.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, we'll move on to the CLA update. I did send an email to the listers and have not heard back from them with the information. Hopefully, I'll hear something before our next meeting. I did check the minutes of the select board meeting, and thank you. And it appears that they did not update the select board with any information about reappraisal or the process. I think that they were waiting for some information in writing that they could proceed before being ordered. And Colin, you attended a select board meeting. Did you have anything to add?
Was that in between? I guess, yeah. That was in between our last meeting and this meeting. Yeah, so I don't even remember the meeting now. Mid-July after our last board meeting, I attended. They talked about the process. They'd submitted paperwork to the state to, it's obviously, basically what came back is, you know, they processed some paperwork to get us in line. The city, or excuse me, the town is driven on different factors than the CLA as far as what forces us as a town to get put into reappraisal. Doesn't mean we can't go get our own reappraisal anytime we want, but it's not the CLA, it's the CDA, some other
COD or something?
some other form of market value to house value that dictates whether a town gets put in at the state level, which we were not at, but certainly
We're getting close.
we're getting close. But obviously the CLA is the portion. I kind of walked through the formula again with the select board, with the listers, to just voice our concern about how it's adversely affecting the education portion of your property tax bill, and how simply we just were hoping to do anything we could to help us get in line. But it looks like at this point there's only a handful, and I mean 2 or 3 state-approved appraisals. A lot of towns have been forced into reappraisal, so they're, just as he was just explaining about priority, they get top priority when it comes to getting in line and those appraisers. So folks that aren't even on that mandated list, at this point they can't even get a bid because they're looking 2 to 3 years out, so they're not even going to honor the bid. We do have the funds sitting on the town side. It's a small portion of your property tax bill. 1 cent or 1 cent of that bill goes into the reappraisal fund. So we have a substantial amount of money sitting there to do the project. And the listers are actively working through the process to get us there. And I simply, on our behalf, or said, you know, whatever we can do, especially when it comes time to get that reappraisal done, is the more accurate we can do, the faster we can do it, the better for everybody. So we'd be helping tell people, you know, when you hear reappraisal, everyone thinks bad. My appraisal is going to go up. My taxes will go up. Well, on the municipal side, essentially let's just say we need $1 million and we have $1 million of property value. So that creates what, a $1 property tax bill. Well, if your property is all of a sudden worth $2 million, you're not going to go up and raise $2 million. Your actually property tax rate will get cut in half because they only need to raise the same amount of money. On the education side, the CLA gets factored in at the very, very end. So we have a set amount of money we need to raise. The per pupil cost dictates the formula that spits out our equalized tax rate at the town level. And that's more of the per pupil count, and what we talked about through our budget cycle is, you know, what they count as a pupil and how much you're spending. And then they kick out a number. And if you're above or below average, if you're above average, that's when you get kind of penalized. If you're on average, essentially I'm just throwing numbers out, 13,000 per pupil, and we were less than that. So we were looking pretty good. They kick out your equalized tax rate of $1.21. Well, then they go ahead and say, okay, well, what's your CLA? And for us this year, it was 75%, meaning the average house on paper is 75% assessed under market value. So then they divide your equalized tax rate by 75%. So that takes us from 121, which is all the money we need to raise for our budget. And we have to raise an additional 33% to send to the state that doesn't come back to us. So that CLA really has an adverse effect in your educational portion of your tax bill. So it's just trying to re-explain to them that, and to the folks, that when we come across and the town reaches out, when we get in line to say, hey, there's a reappraisal, reach out back to them, let them in your house, let them do the reappraisal. Don't fight it because it's going to help us all. It's not a bad thing. So we had a good talk, and we had a good meeting prior to that. Me and Tina did with the two listers, and that's where we're at.
And lastly, they are down a lister. There are supposed to be 3, and they have not received any applications for the 3rd spot. So they're still looking for another lister. So if you're interested, check the website and apply. Next, board workshop. We had discussed at our retreat that, and I think even the meeting beforehand, that we were interested in holding a board workshop to talk about budgeting and kind of work through Act 127 and how it's going to affect us this year. Chris mentioned today, the VSBA has sent out a notice that they are going to be providing more budget resources this year. And Chris had thought that with all that information that it would be helpful to have, I think, to get together with the SU board and or chairs or something and kind of decide how to use that information. So it sounds like, and given that there's only 3 of us here tonight, it might make more sense to discuss this again next meeting after we've had a chance to sift through that new budget resource we got from the VSBA and had a chance to sit down with Chris and hear what he was thinking about that. Chris, is there anything else you want to add? Oh, it looks like he left.
Yes, yeah, you did.
Okay, never mind. So
Didn't we, on that kind of same thought, did we create a new committee what did I sign up for?
yes, on the SU side,
Yeah.
but not on this yet.
But it's going to spread through the OSU marketing. What was it?
Right, it's through that. It's for the SU.
Yeah.
So
Trying to work on the SU level just to get some more, how we can better communicate with the public, get more of these
engagement.
frequently asked questions and engage the community. We're trying to potentially work on maybe a questionnaire that we can get launched for the November election cycle to have here that just says just a couple questions to just gauge the public and on their knowledge of this board plus the SU board and just how we can better inform them coming into March this year. So we kind of took the initiative of the SU to band together across our multiple communities and work together to just better communicate, better get information out there. What's working for some people, what's not, and hopefully have a lot more community engagement prior to town board meetings,
Yes.
to town meeting day this year.
So thank you for leading that committee. Look forward to hearing some updates from that. And Chris had mentioned at the July meeting that he and Lewis would help to work on that frequently asked question information that we could maybe send out to all residents in the fall. So more to come on that.
That we said Mike was going to hand deliver each house part of that.
All right. So let's move on to new business. There was an enrollment special request from a family that has a purchase and sale agreement, but it's not until September 20th. And our policy states that they must have it by September 15th in order for the kids to start unless they get permission from the board. So they're asking permission from the board for their kids to start the school year since they're just a few days late with the closing. So I would entertain a motion and or questions.
Is where are they geographically located now? Close or far?
They are I think they were 40 minutes away, if I remember correctly. I think they're from down in Danby.
I'll make a motion to approve them starting the year.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved unanimously. So I guess, Sarah, you can let the family know. All right.
This is one follow up, and that doesn't change my vote. But like in the event the PNS falls through, what's the repercussions?
I think if they're not living in the district by the date that they say that they're going to, then they have to disenroll. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yes. I believe so.
Or they might have to request an extension, or if
Well, I don't
something
mind the
falls.
extension, but
Yeah.
if it falls through completely,
Yeah.
or they get tuition in, I'm assuming, or is that like next day, like
Yeah, I'm thinking because we had a family, it kind of depends what happens, that moved here and the house that they were living at sold. This one fell through. So like homelessness, there's a number of things that could happen.
Mhm.
So if they are already enrolled here,
Yeah, I think it would be a case by case basis.
yeah, it depends on the situation.
Also leaves me another question, not directly related to this, but logistically speaking, if this child was 17, do they have to seek our approval or Rutland High School approval? Let's just say they're from out of state. Their PNS is September 20th. They want to start at the high school. Do they have to come to this board, or do they have to go to that board, or is it a combination of it?
I think they would still have to come to this board that we,
We're paying for
We
it.
pay the
Yeah.
tuition.
Okay.
yeah,
Just logistical question.
but these kids are younger.
I understand that, but I just
No question. Visbit proxy. I believe Eric is our Visbit proxy for the supervisory union board. This is a Visbit is the insurance carrier, I think, for the school board or school district, and they require a person or a proxy from each school district to attend their meeting, which I believe this one is at 8 a.m. on the Friday of October 25th. So, do either of you want that role, since I believe you said you were going to be able to go to the conference this year?
Yep.
Or did you want it? I think you went last year.
I think I'm the backup proxy at the SU level, so
The backup.
I'll be happy to ours. But if Jeff wants to do it, it's fine. I plan to be there, but if you would like to do it, have at it.
Run that by me again.
So it's the insurance carrier for the school district and school whole union, I believe, for the state, and they have a annual meeting, and they require some votes on their articles
Oh,
from
okay.
members, like one person from each district or a proxy.
Okay.
So is that something you'd like to do, or if you're not sure you're going, we could have you as a backup, or I could be the
I'll
backup.
go.
You'll go? Do you
Yeah.
want to do it? Okay. So I think we just need to approve that.
Yeah.
Make a
So
motion
moved.
to approve. All right.
Yeah.
So you just fill that out and you take it with you, so you don't want to lose it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
They give you a little stick. It's like it's their annual meeting, so there'll be some votes,
And Jeff,
and it'll be about 17 minutes.
it's not
Okay.
very
It
long.
should be about an hour and a half though, because it's important stuff. They're the ones that do workers' comp, the Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's a whole lot packaged into what they do. They also do all the cities, leagues, and towns for the state of Vermont as well.
You made the motion for the enrollment special request. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to finance. Lewis is not here tonight, so if you have any questions on the financial reports, you can email him. And I will push the end of the year report for him to take questions to the next meeting. Unless anyone thinks otherwise.
Nope.
All right. All right, consent agenda. We have approval of warrants, 3 approval of minutes, and the superintendent's report. I did email out, did you get one of these?
Yeah.
I had made several edits to the minutes. So if you don't mind just taking a quick second to read over it and make sure that you understand it, and if you have any questions. Most of it was grammatical, but sometimes because the word was wrong, it might change the meaning of something. But I think intention was all there. So if someone wants to make a motion to approve the entire
I'll
consent
make a
agenda.
motion to approve.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. All right, personnel, contract recommendations. Let me get to that page. Okay, there were two professional staff, Megan Miro and Margaret Prozo, both horizontal moves. The rest were informational purposes only, and all of them will be included in the minutes. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make
that
a
one?
motion to approve the
Contract recommendations.
contract recommendation. Sorry, I
Thank you, Jeff.
left this.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, vacancies are in the packet. Sarah, did you want to make any mention of vacancies?
Sure. I believe GRCSU is still actively looking for paraeducators, and we still do have an opening. So those are posted on Indeed and School Spring. Tammy Rescott or Tiffany Patterson and Katie Loomis would be the contact. We are always looking for GRCSU special educators as well. And we are in dire need of substitutes. It won't be a board meeting without me asking for substitutes, including substitutes for our preschool classroom. So Cindy Andrina would be the contact at central office.
Thank you. So they would just call central office and ask for an application?
Correct. And I've posted her contact information on our Facebook page a few times too, if you want her email address, or people are welcome to reach out to myself or Mike.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. And just a note, the Rutland Town School Continuous Improvement Plan is in the bucket, but it was not on the agenda. So read it over. If you have any questions, we can talk about it next meeting. And next meeting, we will also have a FastBridge data update. We were hoping to have it this time, but due to vacations, it was not available yet. And there's also a parent-teacher handbook in the bucket, but it's still being worked on. Correct.
It's very
So-
much in draft form.
Yeah, it's still in draft form. So I guess we'll check the final completed one out at our next meeting as well. Next up are the chair reports and goals. I know that we finished the goals last time. I just wanted to read through them and have a motion to adopt them officially. I don't believe we did that last time. So in the minutes on page 9 from last time are the basically 5 goals. The first one is the board will ensure its annual budget aligns with its stated priorities and provide an equitable distribution of resources to help meet the needs and goals of every student. And we plan to do this by keeping the school culture high, making sure we hire high quality staff, maintaining a sense of community, making decisions aligned with a strategic plan, regular updates on academic data, and progress reports on the CIP. Second goal, the board will continue to look for ways to increase community engagement and trust, and will continue to annually evaluate the effectiveness of community engagement and public communication. We plan to do this by working on a frequently asked questions brochure with the SU. We will communicate where all our that we will use to communicate where all of our information is and that it is factual. They will continue to assess that they have tried and what worked and what did not work. And we will brainstorm other ways to engage and assess the value of the same. And we'll discuss with the select board, listers, and others regarding ways to communicate information to the public together. The third goal, the board will increase their continuous learning and development and provide members with opportunities for ongoing training and support to maintain and increase their skills and understanding. Plan to do this by the board increasing their continuous learning and development by attending VSBA webinars, holding a budgeting workshop, and increasing attendance at the VSBA conference in October. And our fourth goal is to average 2-hour meetings. Looks like we're on par for that tonight or less. And we're going to do that by coming prepared, approving the consent agenda quickly, which we did tonight. Good job. Be mindful of good and welfare if the meeting's going on the long end, and not being afraid to table discussion and limiting the time for staff and student highlights to 10 minutes on average. And then our fifth one was looking at ways to make the field safer and its effect on the budget. So, any discussion, comments? Is there a motion to approve those goals?
I'll make a motion to approve those goals.
Thank you, Jeff. All in favor?
Right?
Aye. Unanimous. Okay. So our next meeting is September 10th at 6 p.m. We'll get an update on the first 2 weeks of school and hear about the CIP, answer any questions about the CIP, go over the FastBridge data, discuss budget workshop, and CLA update again. Anything else agenda item wise either of you have
There then.
for September? Alrighty. Teacher, staff, community comments. Anyone online like to speak? Any last questions? Seeing none, we do not need an executive session tonight. Good and welfare. Can't believe it's 2 weeks from tomorrow that school's starting, and I'm excited that they're able to get some of the remediation work in before school starts. Yes, knock on wood. Anybody else?
I can't believe you're gonna have an hour in the bank after this meeting. I'm excited for school to start. Be coaching soccer for, I don't know if it's the rec of the school, but after school this year it'll be fun. And then me is excited that me and Asa played in the first parent-child tournament this past Sunday in golf, and we shot 2 under, so it's good.
Great.
Asa's having fun.
Sounds nice.
I just wish everybody a good year.
Sounds great. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Jeff. All in favor? Aye. Did you say aye?
I did.
Okay. It's unanimous. Motion is adjourned at 7 p.m.
Discussion.